Hello everyone, good day. Welcome to today's webinar. So today's webinar is a product carbon footprint in IMDS 15.0, what compliance engineers must know. So today's session is all about making PCF practical and actionable for compliance teams. So our goal is to keep breaking down the recent PCF requirements and IMDS 15.0 system changes, turning the complex standards into simple, clear, and yet simple steps that you can use to position your company as a trusted competitive. Introducing myself, I am Pranam Joseph, Senior Engineer at AP Engineering. So with over 5 years of experience in the regulatory compliance and sustainability initiatives, I've had the privilege of guiding automotive suppliers through evolving global requirements. So my work at AP Engineering has been focused on helping clients across the industry adapt to change in the regulations and deliver on OEM expectations. So a few housekeeping notifications. All the participants except all the speakers are muted to avoid any disruption during the presentation. So this session will be recorded and the recordings will be shared with you afterwards. So we'll also be conducting a survey at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is invaluable, and completing the survey will provide you with access to additional resources that explains today's topic in greater detail. Lastly, if you have any questions or comments, please feel to use the comment section during this session, or you can email us at complaints@apengineering.com. We'll do our best to address your queries as soon as possible. Introducing AP Engineering. So with over 20 years of experience, we operate globally in the US, EU, and the Asia Pacific regions. We are ISO 27001, ISO 9001, and TISAX certified, serving over 350 customers. Our services include compliance, engineering, sourcing, and software solutions. We offer tools for regulatory compliance, turnkey solutions, and more. So let me go through today's agenda. So we'll start with the reasons why PCF matters and what's PCF. So then I'll cover the key PCF fundamentals and the standards. Next, we'll compare the cradle-to-gate and the cradle-to-grave boundaries. We look at what's changed in the IMDS 15.2 and finish the requirement PCF data fields and how to submit them. So this is the structure to be direct and practical. So by the end of the webinar, you'll be clear on what's needed and really help you to cover this topic. So we'll start with what product carbon footprint or PCF means. So PCF is a measure that the total greenhouse gas emissions associated with the product from raw material extractions to the end of life, what we call a cradle-to-grave approach. It's expressed in carbon dioxide equivalents, and it follows the standards like ISO 14067 and GHG Protocol product standard. So PCF gives us a clear, consistent way to compare climate impacts between products and identify where emissions can be reduced. And why PCF matters now. So the global focus on decarbonization is accelerating. So industry accounts for about 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and the customers, especially automotive OEMs, are demanding PCF data through IMDS 15.2. So this marks a shift from compliance to carbon performance. So PCF is becoming essential not only meeting the net zero goals, but also for maintaining competitiveness in a low carbon supply chain. So now we understand what the PCF is. So let's look at what's driving its implementation across industries. First, the customer and OEM requirements. So these are the leading factors in this shift. So many major automotive manufacturers are now requiring the suppliers to provide PCF data through IMDS 15.2. So this is becoming a new standard expectations in the supply chain. The corporate sustainability commitments, so particularly net zero and science-based targets. So to measure real progress towards these goals, organization needs accurate product level data. So and that's exactly what PCF delivers. And the third, there's the need for supply chain transparency. PCF helps map emissions across the value chain, identify the hotspots, and engage suppliers in reduction actions. Fourth, the competitive advantage. So customers are increasingly preferring working with the suppliers who can demonstrate credible carbon performance. The early compliance not only meets requirements but also strengthens your company's market positioning. And finally, cost and risk management. As carbon pricing and disclosure regulations expand, understanding product level emissions helps companies anticipate costs and make better material or design decisions. So in short, a PCF implementation isn't just a compliance task, it's becoming a strategic business enabler. So over the last few years, we've seen a strong regulatory and market shift from focusing on chemical compliances to carbon transparency at the product level. So in the EU, Green Deal and the CSRD are making carbon disclosure mandatory, not just at the company level, but now for individual products. The upcoming eco-design for sustainable product regulation will go one step further with the digital product passport, which includes the PCF data as a key metric. So globally, ISO 14067 and the GHG Protocol product standards have been the core reference points for calculating and communicating PCF consistently. And in the automotive sector, OEMs are already ahead. Many now request PCF data submissions in IMDS 15.2, showing how compliance expectations are evolving towards full carbon accountability. So let's see how PCF is calculated. So this basic idea is simple. For each process in the product life cycle, we multiply the measurable activity data by the relevant emission factor. So the activity data means things like the kilograms of steel used, kilowatt hours of electricity, the kilometer transferred for the transport, or the liters of diesel being burned. So these are the real numbers from your productions or your supply chain. Emission factors tells us how much carbon dioxide equivalence is generated per unit of that each activity. So based on the established references. For example, 1 kilowatt of electricity could be emitting 0.5 kg of carbon dioxide, and 1 liter of diesel about 2.3 kg of carbon dioxide equivalents. So you do this multiplication for every activity, then add up each result. The total PCF is a sum of all the activities across the product life cycle. So the challenge is in the math, it's capturing every relevant process and getting the best available emission factors. So primary versus secondary data. So not all data is created equal. So one of the most critical concept in PCF is understanding the difference between primary and the secondary data. So primary data is the one that directly comes from your specific operation and your specific supply chain. So this is real measured data. For example, your actual electricity bill shows exactly how much your power your factory has consumed last month. The advantage, so primarily the primary data is accurate, site specific, and reflects your real performance. It also builds stronger relationship with your suppliers when you collaborate on data collection. Secondary data, on the other hand, it has come from databases, industry averages, or published reports. For example, instead of your actual electricity consumptions, you might use a regional grid emission factors average. So instead of supply specific material data, you might use a generic database value for your steel or aluminum. Secondary data has its own advantage. It's quick, cost-effective, and readily available. It's excellent for initial estimates or for minor components, but it's less accurate and it doesn't reflect your specific reality. So industry standards track something called primary data shares or PDS, the percentage of your total PCF that was calculated using primary data. Higher the PDS means more accurate, credible PCF. OEMs increasingly expect high PDS values. So thinking of this way, so the secondary data gets you in the game quickly, but primary data is what wins your credibility and shows the true performance over time. So you've probably heard of ISO 14067 and GHG Protocol, but for automotive compliance, Catena X PCF rulebook is now just as important as the other two. So here's how they connect. So ISO 14067 is an international benchmark. It sets global grounds for how to calculate and communicate carbon footprint. It's best for formal verification and external communication. So GHG protocols is broader and flexible. It's great for internal carbon accounting across industries, value chain collaboration, and voluntary reporting. So think of it as a go-to for consistent emission tracking and management. And the Catena X PCF rulebook. It's the newest and the laser focused on automotive, built on both ISO and GHG protocol. It adds strict sector-specific rules to eliminate ambiguity between the suppliers, ensuring everyone uses the same calculation and the reporting approach. Catena X is now more at the core of exchanging PCF data in IMDS and across the Catena X network. This Catena X PCF rulebook is the automotive industry's playbook for carbon footprint calculation. Its main purpose is to ensure every supplier from OEM through all tiers calculate the reports the same day. That means less room for interpretations and true comparability. So some key requirements. So it's always a cradle-to-gate boundary. It includes strict rules for things like transport and electricity and sets minimum amount of primary data for quality. So most importantly, it's fully aligned with IMDS 15.2. So if you're submitting PCF in IMDS, you must follow Catena X. For automotive PCF reporting, you need to understand all the three standards, ISO and GHG protocol. So they both provide the foundation, but Catena X rulebook is your practical guide for automotive specific calculations. And IMDS 15.0 is your submission platform. They're complementary, not competitive. Cradle to gate starts raw material extraction and ends when the product leaves your facility, the factory gate. So it covers everything you control in your production, including manufacturing and transport. So the scope includes all the upstream emissions. So suppliers focus on scope 1, 2, and 3 streams, but for IMDS 15.0 reporting, automotive suppliers are required to report cradle to gate only. So cradle-to-grave, on the other hand, it extends the system's boundary all the way to the end of life or disposal or recycling. This covers the full product life cycle, including not just upstream, but also downstream use and end of life emissions. OEM may use cradle-to-grave analysis for a comprehensive vehicle level declaration and to support environmental strategies. So this diagram highlights where each stage fits use phase and the end of life. So these are not included in C2G, but are included in the C2G, which is cradle-to-grave. This distinction ensures that suppliers and OEMs each focus on the life cycle stages and the control and influence. So why do automotive suppliers use a cradle-to-gate instead of a cradle-to-grave? It's all about the control and the responsibility. So first, control. As a supplier, you control your own sourcing, manufacturing, energy use, and efficiency. Once the part leaves your factory, you can't control how the OEM uses it, how the end customer drives the vehicle, or what happens at the end of life. So cradle-to-gate focuses only on the status where you have direct responsibility and impact. Second, the data quality, the data availability. For cradle-to-gate, your data comes straight from your production records, material invoices, and energy bills. So these are real audible numbers. But for use phase and end of life, you will be forced to estimate things like a vehicle lifetime, usage, fuel or electricity consumption, and the recycling rates. So finally, the IMDS 15.2 and the CAT-NIX rule book both require suppliers to report only up to gate, where your data is solid and can be verified by audits. If an OEM ever needs a full cradle-to-grave picture for a special case, they'll give you the assumption to use. So this is why IMDS 15.2 submissions will almost certainly be cradle-to-gate. It's credible, it's controllable, and it's based on real data you can verify. Cradle-to-grave impact and why and when OEM uses it. Cradle-to-grave analysis gives OEMs a complete view of a vehicle's climate impact, which supporting their stakeholders' transparency, sustainability reporting, and market claims. So it's particularly relevant because for electrical vehicles, the use space reference around 60% of total emissions due to electricity use. While in combustion vehicles, use space is even more dominant to about 80%. So from a supplier's perspective, the demand on the contribution of your component during use is impacted. So for parts with minimal use impact, your total will be only 5 to 15% higher than the cradle-to-gate, and the manufacturing efficiency is higher than the best level. So for high impacts like batteries or lightweight materials, the reported footprint can be 50 to 200% higher once you account for use space. So creating both a challenge and a strong opportunity for OEM recognition and innovations. So in summary, cradle-to-grave is critical for OEMs and shapes how suppliers should analyze and communicate the full life cycle value of their components. IMDS 15.0 release and what has changed. So IMDS 15.0 launched in July 2025. It marks a major shift by integrating carbon and sustainability data into the core of automotive compliance. So some of the key enhancements. So PCF integration. It lets you enter and track the PCF at every product level, linking results to specific production sites. And transport carbon footprint. That is now tracked separately, capturing emissions for various shipping routes and for various customers. The dynamic SVHG classification. It means the substances flags that it updates automatically as regulation changes, reducing manual efforts. The MCCP regulation enhancement ensures mandatory reporting. If the data is missing, the material is flagged as an SVHC. And the risk value. So the value handling improves materials accuracy by allowing the range-based reporting for compositions reminder. And granular user permissions. So it introduced detailed access control for roles and other functions. And finally, the mandatory regulatory data validation blocks the submission with the missing critical data and it flags it incomplete. But non-critical fields with warnings. So overall, IMDS 15.2 makes carbon accountability a critical and a central part of every supplier's compliance responsibility, and alongside traditional chemicals and material data. So we'll see exactly how to enter the PCF data in IMDS 15.2. So this is an operation stuff you need to understand. So first, the product carbon footprint data goes into the ingredients tab of each MDS. When you create or save a new MDS, the system lets you define the multiple production sites. So you can enter the different PCF value depending on where the product is made. Each location needs a separate entry. This keeps your reporting accurate and site specific. For transport carbon footprint, you'll use the recipient tab. Here you can log emissions for every customer route or destinations. So IMDS lets you capture multiple routes for one IMDS so that the data is detailed as your shipping networks. So this setup means you can now distinguish carbon data by manufacturing site and shipment route, making both your sustainability reporting and regulatory compliance much stronger. So when entering PCF data in IMDS 15.2, you need to distinguish the required from the optional fields, and it follows a precise workflow. So the required blue box fields are mandatory for all the entries. It includes the PCF value, production size, calculation standard, and the 3 DQR scores. So the technology, time, and geography ratings. So before you can release your entry, you also have to fill the red box fields, which is the primary data share PDS, and if available, a detailed GHG breakdown. The optional fields like extra emission breakdowns, carbon content, or method nodes are hidden by default, but can increase the transparency. So the process is straightforward. In the ingredients tab, you use the plus to open the PCF data. It pops up, so you enter the blue box field and click apply. And the red box fields, DQR and the PDS, then you hit the release. Once released, PCF data is logged and it can be versioned, never be overwritten. So the key features, PCF versioning is completely separate from MDS or the BOM versions. So released PCF cannot be deleted, only updated with the new versions. You'll get email alerts for updates and the customers see only the DQR and PDS values unless you choose to share your raw PCF data. So this system puts you in control, ensures traceable carbon reporting, and gives customers confidence in your data. So one critical part of PCF reporting is IMDS 15.0 is meeting your data quality expectations. So there are two major requirements, PDS and then DQR. So PDS is the percentage of your calculation based on real primary data from your own operations. Higher the PDS, the more accurate and trusted your footprints are. The remaining percent is from the secondary sources like databases or industry averages. The Catenary sets minimum PDS targets depending on the component. So always aim for a high PDS as possible. Along PDS, you must enter the DQR ratings. So DQR scores your PCF on 3 dimensions. As I said previously, it's the technology rating, how precise your method is, and the time rating, how fresh your data is, and the geography rating. So this is how location specific your data is. So each is scored 1 to 5, with being 1 being the best. So the overall DQR is simply the average of those 3. So aim for a low score, which signals high data quality to your customers. So improving your PDS and keeping your DQR low directly increases your credibility and competitiveness as a supplier. So when submitting a PCF in IMDS, there are a set of mandatory fields you must complete, and using right examples, you can get it right the first time. The PCF value, this is where you enter your core result, such as 5.2 kg of carbon dioxide per component or 1.8 kg of carbon dioxide per kg of materials. So if you leave this blank, the system will block your submissions with an error. Second, the production sites, you need to specify exactly where the part was made. So this again, if there's missing this field, it will block the submission. And the calculation standards or reference. Here you can indicate which methodology followed, example the Catenac's rulebook or the GHG protocols. So Catenac's rulebook is recommended, but again, yes, if you leave it out, your submission is blocked because OEMs need to know whether you follow the sector-specific rules. Then you enter your PDS. For instance, you might report a 68%, which means 68% of your calculation uses your own measured data, and 30% comes from the industry databases. So OEM expects at least 60% PDS, less than that name figure versions. So finally, you will enter your DKR scores, the technology rating, time rating, and geography ratings. So if you are missing any of these essentials, IMDS will flag an error and you won't be able to release your PCF. So, but with complete fields, especially using high PDS and low DQR, your submissions will be robust, credible, and ready for global customer review. So we'll review exactly how PCF submission works in IMDS 15.0. So you enter your PCF value, the production site, and the calculation standard you used. For example, 5.2 kg of carbon dioxide per component, and the factory in the region you, for example, Germany, and the rule book you used, which is Catenac's rule book. So then after that, you click apply, which saves your work in draft. So step 2, you to formally submit, you must add your PDS and your TQR ratings. So after that, you click release to send your IMDS. If any mandatory field is missing, whether it's the PCF value or production site, the calculation standard, the PDS or DQR, IMDS will block the submission. So think of it as a checklist. Everyone should know that one of the five must have a value, or your PCF won't go to the customer. So this ensures every PCF is in IMDS is complete, traceable, and auditable. So the key implications and the action items for the suppliers. So PCF is now a compliance responsibility, not just a sustainability goal. So we are managing both chemical and carbon compliance together in IMDS. The mandatory validation means stricter submissions and DQR PDS scores. Now define your data credibility. For operations, every facility must track energy and fuel by component, not just overall, but every facility. So primary data from suppliers becomes essential. So this means that a new data system will improve the efficiency and can cut costs. For strategic planning, so carbon is officially a supply selection criterion. So OEMs are requesting PCF in RFQs. So early leaders with the robust PCF data wins the business. So those who lacks those contracts. So supply chain transparency now means tire to tire. So PCF is the new normal now. So the PCF entry is optional today as for the complaint status, but major OEMs like BMW or Audi or Volkswagen are already requiring it. So RFQs will include a PCF by late 2025, and it's expected to be mandatory across the industry by 2026. So if you delay primary data collections, you will be the year behind the competitor. An action item or action plan for the suppliers. So here's a 90 days action plan for the month one. So do a gap analysis, identify your priority components, assign one PCF owner responsible for everything. So give them IMDS 15.2 access and define your approval workflow. So that's it. You're setting foundation. For month two, so collect your own energy databases like electricity, fuel, water, the production line. Simultaneously reach out to your top 5 to 10 suppliers. Send them a template requesting PCF data with the Catenax guidance. Set 4 to 6 week response deadline. Some will have it already, others will need time, but you must ask now. Month 3, take 3 to 5 representative components. Calculate their PCF using Catenax rulebook. Determine the PDS percentage and DQR scores for each. So then test IMDS submission and apply workflow and release the workflow. Train your team, get one successful submission done. So set up your governance. When do you review? Quarterly, annually? No, by the end of 90 days, you are ready. So we have systems, train people, successful pilots, and supplier engagement underway. So let me show you the actual PCF data entry scheme. So this is what you'll see in IMDS. So this slide walks you through the major field in the new IMDS 3.0 PCF data entry form. So first the production site, you need the site's name plus the country, region or state, and optionally GPS coordinates for full traceability. So next you'll enter your actual PCF value. That could be a value like 5.2 or 1.8, and you choose whether it's per component or per kilogram. For example, 5.2 kg carbon dioxide emitted per component. So then comes the calculation references. There is a drop-down menu. Choose the Catenax PCF rulebook if possible, as that's industry recommended, or select ISO or GHG protocols. So finally, the data credibility fields. Enter your primary data share, and then select your technology, time, and geography ratings. So the system will auto calculate your TQR score using the average of these 3 fields. So all of these fields are now required for complete and credible PCF reporting in IMDS 15.2. So making your data robust and auditable. So this screen covers the optional fields and references. So you'll find during the PCF submissions in IMDS. First, you can break down your PCF by emission scopes. So direct emissions, that's scope 1, the purchased energy is scope 2, and the upstream activities, which is scope 3. So all of which are optional and must sum to your total PCF if used. So you can also add supporting documents like link to your detailed calculation file or short methodology notes, or upload files in the data. So finally, the system displays a clear submission status indicator. It shows your completion as a percent for both mandatory and optional fields. So and once if anything required, like a PDS is missing and it's blocking the release. So optional fields help with the transparency, but only mandatory fields are needed to be submitted with your PCF. So this slide summarizes the checks and steps from the draft to the final PCF submission in IMDS 15.2. So These are those 5 mandatory fields like production side, PCF value, calculation standard, PDS percentage, and DQ scores must be completed, or you will get an error, or you won't be able to move forward. So once you have passed all the validation, you hit the release button. So first you apply all the production values, the 5 mandatory sections we saw, and you'll save it as draft, and then you release it as a formal submission. Once the PCF data is logged and timestamped within IMDS with the version history to ensure the traceability. The OEMs or customers now receives your MDS, sees your PDS and DQR for credibility, but your actual PCF value stays hidden by default or unless it is shared. If you ever need to update your PCF, you simply create a new version. So every change is recorded in the on trial. So this ensures a true data integrity. So this slide gives you the checklist for PCF release. So these are the 5 mandatory fields as we saw before. So even if one is missing, like forgetting to select or like the standard or skipping the DQR field, the system blocks your submissions. Like you'll see an error until you fix it. All 5 must be completed, no exceptions. After your successful release, your PCF data is logged. So if you are missing any of the fields, the 5 mandatory fields we saw, and if you hit the release button without entering the field, like for the PCF production sites, you will get an error. So the solution is always start with the section A and click apply before filling the section D. So the PDS percentage must be entered as a number between 0 to 100. Usually, values above 50% is expected. So if you remember all these basics and double check all the 5 mandatory fields and check everything before the release, you will avoid nearly all of the most frequent errors and then keep your PCF submission smooth and efficient. So some of the quick troubleshooting guide for on the PCF submissions. If you see the field X is mandatory and just fill in the missing information and try again. For PDS, you must enter the values from 0 to 100. If you get the DQR scores, it must be between 1 to 5. So for all the 5 mandatory fields, there are certain formats to or the numbers limits on which you can update the mandatory fields. So if your PDS is below 30%, the system recommends using your to use more primary data. Try to reach at least 50% or higher for credibility. Same for the DQR. So above 3.5 means your data quality is not optimal. It's below your OEM confidence. So always use the most current and rigorous data possible. So the data is older than 2 years. It wants you to update with the latest figures to protect your time ratings. So by following this the recommendation and following to fill all the 5 mandatory fields that I've been telling in the past few slides, you can avoid most of the errors and keep your PCF submissions efficient and credible. So these are the 4 key triggers that should prompt the PCF update. First, the annual improvements. It plans to update the data every year as you gather new site measurements or better supply data or improved calculations. Second, update immediately after any production process changes, especially if you upgrade the equipments or change energy resources or see a drop in your performance. So you update it immediately. Third, update within 30 days if your suppliers change, since the upstream data can enter your whole PCF. values. Fourth, always respond to an OEM specific request by generating a new PCF version aligned to the reporting schedule. Each time your action is the same, creating a new PCF version and making sure your stakeholders know that the latest data is available. So this is how the PCF versioning works in IMDS, and a new version is required. So each time you update your PCF, whether due to annual update or an improvement. So older versions are kept for the audit prior, but only the current version is visible for OEMs. So the decision matrix on the right helps you to decide to create a new version for any real improvements in data or if the carbon values changes. If nothing about your data change or if you only added optional comments, you keep this with the current versions. So remember, versioning is about giving customers and auditors strong confidence that the carbon data is up to date and every improvement is visible and traceable. So we have covered a complete learning path on the PCF IMDS. So why it matters. So how it's calculated, the regulatory push the OEM expectations and the practical actions needed for compliance. So we went step by step from field and to error prevention. So based with the version control and set up with your clear action plan. So as the slide shows, the competitive reality is unfolding right now. So OEMs are piloting the PCF. Transparency brings the real advantage, and those who start early are already building a strong reputation for data credibility. By 2026, PCF requirements will be standard in all automotive RFQs, and supply ranking will depend on your quality of your carbon data. So the choice is there. If you act now, you gain lasting market advantage. If you wait, you will be forced to react and catch up or worse. So better we prepare for the competitors. Remember this, these below troops. PCF is no longer optional. Data credibility shows through the PDS and DQR will determine who's trusted in the supply chain. So thank you. So today you have gained a practical knowledge about PCF in IMDS, starting from the regulatory drivers all the way to hands-on workflow and the continuous improvements. To understand why PCF matters and not just as a regulated duty, but as a foundation of operation efficiency. So the leading companies are those who treat carbon transparency as a core value. So those who ignore it is losing out to get a better prepared competitors. So carbon transparency is at the cutting edge of automotive supply chain management, and the opportunity is to release yours and you now have both understanding and the tool. The real question is will you follow those that do. Quick focus action, prioritizing the key components, working with your supply base, beginning your improvement cycle sets you up with a long-term advantage with a low barrier to entry, high competitive return. So thank you for your attention, your initiative and commitment to build a smarter and more responsible supply chain. Let's move forward and build this together. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the question box. Thank you for joining today's webinar. All the questions will be sent to you separately, the answers will be sent to you separately, and kindly fill out the survey questions. You will be getting the documents separately through emails. Thank you, everyone.